Jemima brand forced into a new name, new logo, and new look after the company said they recognized that, quote, Aunt Jemima's origins are based on a racial stereotype. The Muppets apparently warrant disclaimers on Disney+. The Mr. Potato Head brand went gender neutral, dropping the Mr. Monopoly scrapped its community chest cards to appeal to woke folks. Chris Harrison was iced out of the Bachelor franchise. Sharon Osbourne was ousted at The Talk after defending her longtime friend Piers Morgan over his comments on Meghan Markle. Celebs are even on a woke apology tour themselves to appease the mob. More on that coming up. But first, here's a look back at when I took a deep dive into the canceling of Dr. Seuss's books. First, families have touted books by the famous children's author Theodore Seuss Geisel, known as Dr. Seuss. Theodore Seuss was an ardent Democrat who died in 1991. He came onto the scene during the Second World War and was furiously against fascism. He hated the Nazis and Imperial Japan. He pleaded for racial tolerance, was an environmental conservationist, and his whimsical, vibrant, rhythmic, and creative vocabulary inspired children across the world to enjoy the pleasures of reading, including little old me. President Joe Biden canceled Dr. Seuss from Read Across America Day, a National Education Association day dedicated to children's literacy. So what happened? Dr. Seuss Enterprises, the company that oversees his estate, buckled under an intense pressure campaign led by The Conscious Kid, a radical left-wing education outfit, and announced they'd stop publishing 6 Dr. Seuss books because, according to The Conscious Kid, they contained Orientalism, anti-blackness, and white supremacy. We'll scrutinize The Conscious Kid's agenda in a second. It's partially financial, but first let's examine the specific illustrations that are causing so much controversy. And to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, published in 1937, has been canceled because a Chinese man is depicted eating with chopsticks. This was described as deeply hurtful, also because the man had epicanthal eye folds, a common feature for people of Asian descent. On another page, a white male uses a whip over a man of color and the elephant pulling his cart. I'm pretty sure the guy was whipping the animals to giddy up, not the person of color. If I Ran the Zoo, published in 1950, was canceled because a white male was being carried by 3 Asians, and he was holding a gun, illustrating dominance, quote unquote. Another picture showed a man wearing a turban with feathers coming out of it, and this was a stereotype, said the critics. Also, exotification, quote unquote. Many people, as you know, from India wear turbans, so I'm not sure how that stereotype is controversial. And yes, it would be exotic for a Caucasian child halfway around the world seeing that for the first time. There's also a drawing of shirtless and shoeless African villagers. Personally, I understand why that one is a concern. Oh Beyond Zebra, published in 1955, was canceled, again because a man rode a camel. And that man had a turban and curled-toed slippers. Yes, those types of slippers were fashionable in the Middle East, where they still ride camels today. The Cat's Quizzer, Are You Smarter Than a Cat in the Hat, published in 1976, was canceled because a Japanese character was standing next to Mount Fuji. His face was also yellow to distinguish his skin from other races featured in the book, and the critics did not like that. Mick Eliot's Pool, published in 1947, was canceled because Native Americans were depicted fishing. Inuits or Eskimos have gone ice fishing for over 1,000 years. So yes, that is stereotypical of them because it's what they do. I'm not sure what's racist about that. Scrambled Eggs Supper was canceled because, again, a person who belongs to a culture that wears turbans, oh my gosh, wore a turban. and because an Eskimo helped fetch a special egg for a white child to make scrambled eggs with. The New York Times has run cartoons recently of Indians wearing turbans. The New York Times has run dozens of cartoons featuring Asians whose eyes look like Dr. Seuss's drawings. The Seattle Times, a liberal publication, has run cartoons of Arabs dressed in traditional Arab garb, even wielding bloody swords. The Guardian, one of the most progressive publications around, prints cartoons depicting Native Africans. Are all these newspapers going to be canceled? Of course they're not. So why is Dr. Seuss? It's about money and power. As I said before, the main critic driving the cancellation of Dr. Seuss books is a group called The Conscious Kid. The group says they fight and disrupt racism in young children because they argue children begin to show pro-white and anti-black bias at age 3. Wow. The Conscious Kid profits from taking down Dr. Seuss books, and in their place, helps sell thousands of anti-racist books to schools across the country. The Conscious Kid is financially affiliated with Black Lives Matter, and their kids' book collection features books about Kamala Harris and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, written by Obama, Biden, Clinton donors. Shocking. It all makes sense when you follow the money. The National Education Association, the NEA, after de-emphasizing Dr. Seuss, is pushing more progressive books to young students. Wow, listen to this. Julian is a Mermaid is about a little boy who cross-dresses. The Prince and the Dressmaker is another book about cross-dressing. Americanized, Rebel Without a Green Card is about an illegal immigrant from Iran. We Are Here to Stay, Voices of Undocumented Young Adults, is also about illegal immigrants. So I'm fine with having a wide range of authors and issues, but not at the expense of wonderful authors like Dr. Seuss, and not for partisan political indoctrination. All of this seems to be about destroying cultural and historical frames of reference, wiping the slate clean and building a liberal culture that they control entirely and profit from, of course. We give in to the liberal mob because they're annoying. We don't feel like listening to them whine. So we say, fine, here, just shut up. It's how weak parents deal with complaining children. But good parents know how to say no. And the children usually knock it off. America needs to act more like these parents, not the soft and distracted ones. And now on eBay, you can't even buy and sell these books. They're banned. You can buy Hitler's Mein Kampf, but you can't buy Mulberry Street. Apu from The Simpsons, who famously ran the Springfield Quickie Mart, was voiced over by actor Hank Azaria for 30 years, until Azaria quit after a documentary blasted the character's stereotypes. And now he's joining the Hollywood Apology Tour, saying voicing the character contributed to structural racism.
I apologize for my part in creating that, in participating in that. You know, part of me feels like I need to go around to every single Indian person in this country and personally apologize.
So he's sorry for portraying a cartoon Indian on a show written by liberals. Joining me now to react, actor Jamie Kennedy, who has a new film out on demand called Last Call. All right, so, you know, Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, he's a liberal guy. I mean, they skewered conservatives for decades, and they're hilarious. But, you know, the show has, what, an Irish crazy custodian, a sleazy political guy, a rich and evil corporate overlord, and Mr. Burns. Is Hollywood not allowed to portray anyone who's different anymore?
Jesse, I had this conversation last night. A friend of mine said that acting may be dead. Now, it's. I think we have to grow, and we have to have much more inclusion within our business, obviously, and all stories need to be told. But Hank Azaria is an amazing actor. He's incredible. 30 years. I mean, I guess, I don't know why he quit, but he had to quit because maybe he feels it's insensitive. But it's just a cartoon character. But I don't know. I mean, this is happening a lot.
It's happening everywhere, and if they get rid of acting, then you're screwed because that's what you do for a living. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
Well,
I want to play some sound from Bill Maher. Yeah, I know. It's obviously not real, and in this case, it's a cartoon, so it's even less real. I want to play some sound from Bill Maher, who, once in a while just nails it, in my opinion, and says the movies that Hollywood is putting out these days just makes you want to crawl up into a little ball and cry. Let's listen.
Academy nominations used to say, look what great movies we make. Now they say, look what good people we are. It's not about entertainment. It's about suffering, specifically yours. In all honesty, I gotta ask, if your movie is so woke, how come I'm falling asleep?
I mean, it's true because, you and I grew up in an era where they used to have, great films and blockbusters and people go to the movies and come together and feel good about what they saw. And now I haven't heard of anything that's been nominated, and each screenplay looks like it's written by a guy who needs to get a Prozac prescription or something. What's behind this, in your opinion?
I mean, I'm thinking there's something going on where, like you said, I think Hollywood is operating within its own echo chamber. Look, I love it. I've been lucky to be a part of it for 30 years, but it's being more and more, how can I say it? I feel like it's almost making content for itself. Because when I go out in the middle of America, all around, people are like, I didn't see that movie either. So I'm starting not to know all the movies that are in, and I got the screeners. So the circle is closing.
All right, Jamie Kennedy, thanks so much. 6 months into Biden's presidency, and the border crisis continues to worsen. Encounters at the border are up to levels we haven't seen in more than 2 decades. And 10 states have now sent law enforcement and others to help Texas and Arizona deal with this mess. But the Biden administration just keeps cutting programs allowing immigrants and even cartel members to make their way into the U.S. with no one to stop them, especially since the wall will never be completed. Earlier, I spoke with Russell Johnson, a New Mexico cattle rancher who lives near the border, where part of that wall was left unfinished with a big hole 3/4 of a mile wide, basically in his backyard. All right, Russell, you have a family. Describe what it's like to have this property right on the border with a big hole that Joe Biden left in Trump's border wall.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's a horrible feeling knowing that your ranch, your property, your family is now the funneling point of all the traffic that's coming through this area now. This gap is right south of my house. So all of this stuff is coming right by my house, and my family's exposed to it on a daily basis.
And so you've wired the property with cameras, and I'm sure you're taking precautions. What kind of precautions are you taking to protect your property and family?
Well, unfortunately, down here, we don't have any kind of cell phone communications. So communications is a huge issue. It's a pretty horrible situation that I feel it necessary to travel around my own property, my family's property that's been here for 100 years. I have to travel around armed to have some sense of security. Law enforcement resources are stretched thin. Here recently, you're lucky if you see 1 to 2 Border Patrol agents. And unfortunately, those agents aren't on the border. They're actually north 3 and 4 miles because their resources are stretched so thin. They feel that they have better chances of detecting and apprehending these individuals by letting them come north and trying to catch them at those points. But in the meantime, they're terrorizing our ranch in between in that 3-mile stretch.
So you're saying the Border Patrol agents have pulled back from the actual border miles behind that. If you could tell Joe Biden something, what would you tell him right now?
I'd tell him do the right thing. Finish the wall project. And that's another big misconception the public has, is this wall project is not just about the physical barrier. There's going to be new, improved all-weather access roads, sensor packages, lighting, integrated camera towers. It's a complete and total package. It's not just about the wall. And when he shut that down, he took that force multiplier away from the Border Patrol and then took away any sense of hope for security for my family, the American public, and our livelihood.
So he terminated not just the wall, but the technology and the roads and the whole package. I don't think a lot of people know that. So thank you, Russell, for sharing that with us. And I hope you and your family stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
If you haven't watched Court Cam on A&E, you're missing some major courtroom drama. My gosh. And if you like Court Cam, then you're going to love Court Cam Presents Under Oath. It's a true crime show told from the perspective of the accused. And joining me now, the host, Dan Abrams, who's also author of the new book, Kennedy's Avenger, Assassination, Conspiracy, and the Forgotten Trial of Jack Ruby. All right, Dan, so this country right now is fascinated with the criminal justice system. You know, you got George Floyd, you got the witch hunt in Washington. Everyone's really zeroed in on justice in America and what's fair and unfair. Why are people going to watch this new show, in your opinion?
So the new show really shows you the stakes when a criminal defendant takes the witness stand. I mean, you know, in most cases, murder defendants don't take the stand. Why? Because they're guilty and they can't explain exactly what happened, right? But in a lot of cases, it may be worth it, particularly, for example, in a self-defense case. Or in many cases, as you'll see on Court Cam under oath, the defendant decides, I want to present my side of the story as to why I didn't do it at all. And then the whole case ends up coming down to that person's testimony, meaning every other expert witness, piece of testimony, all becomes secondary to whether the jurors believe this person's testimony. And so, you know, as someone who's covered trials my whole career, every time a defendant takes the witness stand in a murder trial, everything else stops around the newsroom. Everyone's focused on it because it's so compelling. And so we've taken 20 stories where defendants take the witness stand and brought those stories to life in this new series Under Oath.
Those surely are high stakes because that testimony, that'll make or break the whole case right there. And I think if I was ever accused and if I was guilty, I'd probably take the stand because I think I'd be slick and persuasive enough to talk my way out of it.
Yeah, but it depends how much evidence they had against you.
That's true. That's true. Well, I wouldn't leave any evidence, Dan. I'd keep it real clean. Now, I have to ask you a question. When are your liberal friends in the mainstream media going to start reporting on this crime wave fairly? You have people getting knocked out cold in the street, pushed into subway tracks. You have homicide rates rising everywhere. And they don't want to talk about it. And it's because of bail reform. It's, you know, we have a lot of lunatics out on the street. They should be getting treatment. You have drug problems. You have gang warfare. What are we going to do to stop it? I think the media, they're culpable in a lot of respects.
I don't know if the media is culpable, but I agree with you that it's underreported. I agree that the media ought to be covering more crime waves in certain cities. Now, some people will tell you, oh, there's no crime wave. It's actually, you know, you have to look at the numbers this way or that way. You know, the bottom line is that there is a serious crime problem in big cities around America. And I do think that the media is reluctant to cover that kind of story.
Now, why is that? Why do you think that is?
Because I've said this publicly. I think the mainstream media is left of center. All right. You would say they're far left. I would say they're left of center. I think the problem is they don't admit it. Right.
Yeah.
And they don't. Because if they would just say, here's where we are politically, and this is how we're going to cover stories, then there'd be a little more honesty in the process. Right.
I agree.
I think the problem is that for a lot of these entities, you know, they don't even notice that they're doing it, right? They don't even notice that they're focusing all on, you know, so often, in my view, too often, claiming the police are always the bad guys,
right,
as opposed to the good guys.
Right.
I mean, I want to see more police heroism stories.
Well, speaking of that, Dan,
you know what?
You got to answer this question for me. When are we getting live PD back?
I hope soon.
Soon.
I will tell you, I have been advocating it from the moment they decided to cancel it. As you know, I was not happy about the decision.
Yeah.
I have been advocating for its return,
Soon.
and I think it's soon.
Oh, my God.
Where there are
Best news I heard all day.
I think it's coming back.
All right. That's great news. I can't wait. I'll be watching. Even though it competes against Water's World, I still tell people to watch. Just DVR my show or live PD, whatever you want. All right. Dan Abrams got the book out and the new show, Court Cam Under Oath on A&E. Thanks.
Bitcoin this morning stabilized.
Bitcoin cryptocurrency.
Even Bitcoin, which bounced. Bitcoin is nuts. Up 33%.
Everyone's going bonkers over Bitcoin. That's all you hear about. So what is it? Who's getting rich off it? And why is Elon Musk making everyone nuts over it? Here to break it all down is the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. Jordan, just lay it on me. First of all, what is Bitcoin?
So the best way to explain Bitcoin is if you take out any bill, like a dollar bill or $100 bill, you'll see a serial number on it, right? That serial number corresponds to some entry in a computer in the government. This bill is legitimate. Well, just imagine if all this stuff that's in code, like in the cloud somewhere, right? Everybody's Bitcoin has its own code, except rather than being a government that says it's real, it's decentralized. There's all these different computers around the world all running the same code. And if enough of them say a transaction is real, it's deemed as being real. So it's all about like multiple computers all over deciding that this particular transaction is legit.
All right,
or not.
yeah,
So
I think I got it.
The central bank.
I think I got it. It's like a computer code that's become a currency that people trade and can invest in. All right. Now, we had one of our producers on the 5 explain what Bitcoin is, and he pulled up his Bitcoin account. And I saw this guy when he invested in 2017. I mean, the guy's made he's my producer, and the guy's cleaning up. And I went to the bathroom. I came back. He'd already made 5 G's. Am I missing something? Am I late to the Bitcoin game? Should I be investing in Bitcoin? Because this 31-year-old kid is he's like wearing gold now.
It can be pretty frustrating for those that didn't invest really early. But here's the thing. No one really knows what's going to happen. I'd be lying if I said I knew where Bitcoin was going. Right now, it's plummeting fast. It's down 50% in the last 10 days, right? And there's major issues with governments like China saying they're not going to allow it.
But look where it started. It started at like $2,000 a coin, and now it was like at 60 grand the other day. And it's all over the place, and people are going nuts because
Can I give you the perfect analogy?
Elon Musk says something, and he just tanks Bitcoin, and everyone wants to storm the castle.
Let me explain. Bitcoin operates by whoever is the cutest girl in school. That's where all the money goes. So Elon was the cutest girl in school for a long time. If Elon said it, then everyone buys Bitcoin or Dogecoin. So what happened was it's people say, is it a Ponzi scheme? Well, the thing is, everyone knows that it's a Ponzi scheme, so it's not really a Ponzi scheme. Everyone knows there's no value there. Everyone decides to buy it, then I guess it's worth money, right? So it's a really weird instrument, but
it's not
really
backed
about
by anything.
who is the cutest girl in school.
Right, it's the hottest girl in school.
Nope.
It's all subjective.
That's it. Yep.
All right, you know what? The hottest girl in school and then the little tiny numbers on the dollar bill, best analogies I've ever heard, because to this day I still didn't understand it. Wolf of Wall Street, breaking it all down for us. Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it. The ambush interview made famous by legendary 60 Minutes reporter Mike Wallace and carried on by yours truly. No show has done more investigative journalism than 60 Minutes. The show's longtime producer has now written a book detailing his shocking exploits, stories involving Bill Clinton, the mob, UFOs, all of it. Joining me now, former 60 Minutes producer and author of Ticking Clock, Behind the Scenes at 60 Minutes, Ira Rosen. All right, so you ran into Ghislaine Maxwell. What was your meeting like,
Well, it was actually the second meeting, and what I did was I decided to play a hunch, and I said, I know Epstein has the tapes of, and she was pro-Clinton, so I said, I know she's got the tapes of Trump, and I want those tapes. And she put a finger in my face, just like this, and she said, I'm the daughter of a press baron. If you do one side, you have to do the other. the other side being Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton took 26 flights on what became known as the Lolita Express. That was Epstein's private plane. So she said, basically, if you do one side, you have to do the other. I said, I will go wherever the story takes me. Get me the tapes. The implication was she knew the tapes existed, but she didn't know where he kept them. And I never did get them. But it was quite interesting, her comment.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then one of the meetings, she actually tried to get you in bed, which you artfully dodged. So she's basically admitting that there's tapes of 2 presidents from Epstein's property. I don't know if I believe that, but that's just what she said. You also spoke to some of these mob bosses about the JFK assassination. What did they tell you?
Well, we had just completed a profile of Joe Bonanno, who ran the Bonanno crime family out in Tucson, and Mike Wallace headed for the airport. And I'm sitting with Joe, and I said, you know, who killed Kennedy? And he said the first thing he did was call down to Miami and talk to Santos Trafficante, who ran the mob in Florida, and said, you know, what happened? And Trafficante said, Miami and New Orleans, which was run by Carlos Marcello, will take the heat for it. New York's clear. And Joe found out later that, in fact, it was, this is again, according to what Joe Bonanno told me, that a Corsican hit team took care of the dirty deed from the grassy knoll, and they themselves were later taken care of. Here's where it gets really interesting. His son, Bill Bonanno, later wrote a book where he claimed that it was Johnny Roselli, a Chicago gangster, who fired a shot from a sewer that was the kill shot. Now, when I did another profile of John Gotti Jr., who ran the who ran a major crime family in New York, Jr. told me that basically Johnny had lousy eyesight and he can never make the shot. So who knows what the truth is in all
Who knows?
this stuff?
I mean, that's what they say. We're talking about the mob here, so you can kind of take that how you want to take it. Now, listen, we don't have time to get into the Jimmy Carter UFO situation, but apparently he wanted to release the UFO files, and George Bush Sr. blocked him at CIA. And we don't have time because we got to go, but I want everybody to read Ticking Clock. It's a great book. I've already started it, and maybe we'll have you on again to explore some of these other exploits that you and Mike Wallace got yourselves into. Thank you very much, Ira.
Yeah, pretty wild. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Speaking of books, my book, How I Saved the World, will be available in just a few days. You can snag your physical copy on July 6th. But why wait? You can pre-order it now, How I Saved the World, wherever books are sold.